An Australian delegation of politicians is in Israel right now, touring October 7 massacre sites in other parts of the country. It comes as Israel prepares to wipe out Hamas, the final brigades it has in Rafah in Gaza. Earlier, I caught up with the Shadow Home Affairs Minister, James Paterson, who is in Jerusalem. Thanks for your time. I know that you've been up on the northern border of Israel with Lebanon, and the officials have briefed you on the situation as it relates to Hezbollah. How risky is the situation now that will spread into an open and all-out conflict on the northern border as well?
Kieran, there's been a low-level intensity conflict at the northern Israeli border between the IDF and Hezbollah for 6 months now, and there has been casualties on both sides. There is very regular exchanges of fire. Just today, there are about 80 rockets that were launched from southern Lebanon into Israel, most of which are intercepted by Iron Dome or otherwise fell in areas that didn't cause casualties to Israeli citizens, but there are IDF members and others, including an Indian foreign worker, who have been killed by Hezbollah's attacks. Everyone is very anxious to make sure this does not escalate into a full-scale war, but Israel has a very legitimate concern, which is that Hezbollah is in clear violation of UN Resolution 1701, which was unanimously agreed by the United Nations Security Council in 2006, which says that south of the Litani River must be a totally demilitarised zone. Hezbollah must have no weapons in the area. Well, right now, Hezbollah has not only stocked that area full of missiles and other munitions, but they are regularly operating from that area and firing into Israel, just metres from the border fence and security wall between Israel and Lebanon. So they're in total violation of that UN security resolution. It has led to the evacuation of about 60,000 Israeli citizens south of that Lebanese border who cannot safely return to their homes, with the threat of up to 200,000 rockets controlled by Hezbollah pointed at them.
Is there a risk, though, with the imminent Rafah offensive in Gaza? The Prime Minister Netanyahu, the Israeli PM, said that they're not going to stop the war, and that includes Rafah, the last Hamas stronghold, as he put it. Whoever tells us not to act in Rafah is telling us to lose the war, and that will not happen. He is pushing ahead with that. Is there a risk, Senator Paterson, that with that offensive coming, that will provoke others in the region, maybe Hezbollah, Iran or others, from retaliating, and this providing the spark for what Israel is hoping to avoid, and that being a region-wide conflict?
Kieran, there is a steely resolve among Israelis from the left to the right of the political spectrum that they must finish the operation in Gaza, and that involves removing all of the remaining Hamas brigades. They believe there's only 4 or 6 Hamas brigades left compared to 22 at the start of the war. They are located in Rafah, but they believe if to end the military operation now would just simply allow Hamas to take over Gaza again, which would be no safety for the people of Gaza, for any Palestinian people, and of course not for the people of Israel. There is no consensus as to why Hezbollah has not entered into the conflict in a more direct way. There are some who say that Iran has asked Hezbollah to not enter into the conflict in a more direct way because they want to retain that threat, that insurance policy over Israel in case Israel ever decides to take action against Iran's nuclear facilities. There are others who say that Hezbollah has been successfully deterred by both the IDF and also the presence of US carrier strike groups in the region. And President Biden, who has very clearly said any other actors that enter into this conflict will meet the full force of the US military might. But either way, it's very important that this issue is resolved. It can either be resolved through conflict or it can be resolved diplomatically. And it should be resolved by Hezbollah complying with that 2006 UN resolution. It should be enforced by the international community. There are UN peacekeepers and monitors in the region right now, but they have not been able to successfully stop Hezbollah from rearming in that region. And the Hezbollah rockets that are in that region include more rudimentary basic rockets with a shorter range of, say, 5 or 10 kilometres, but also highly sophisticated precision-guided weapons that have ranges of hundreds of kilometres that stretch as far as Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and put at risk almost all of Israel's civilian population. Now, that clearly is a totally unacceptable series of events. No democratic state would tolerate that risk on its border, and particularly not after the 7th of October. They do not want to see the 7th of October repeated again just for their northern communities.
There is an issue, though, isn't there, in terms of international views and legitimacy of Israel in the eyes of the international community. Surely there is a sensitivity to that in Israel with those that you've spoken to. How do they navigate that?
Everyone agrees there's an absolutely dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, and one that it is not easy to rectify, because there is current operations, military operations taking place right now by the IDF to try and eliminate Hamas, and Hamas is fighting back and taking Israeli casualties on a regular basis. So to deliver aid in those circumstances is very difficult, not just to get it across the border, but once it's in Gaza, to deliver it to the people who need it. That's why you've seen the United States and others engage in airdrops, and why they're exploring sea delivery of aid, because there is a very dire humanitarian need, and everyone in Israel appreciates that. They also believe, though, that delaying the operation in Rafah is not going to aid that situation. It's not going to improve that situation, because while ever Hamas is on the ground, it is a threat both to the IDF in Israel, but also the civilian peacekeepers and aid workers who are seeking to deliver that aid into Gaza. It is unsafe to do so and risky to do so. And so really Hamas is the problem here. That has been the problem from the very beginning. They have chosen the side of this conflict. They have chosen to embed themselves in the civilian population in Gaza. They've chosen to put data centres under UNRWA headquarters. They've chosen to put weapons in schools. And unfortunately, that means there has been a very significant civilian toll, but one which the IDF assures us and others that they have tried to minimise as much as possible.